Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the class. We are discussing second chapter. What is the name of the chapter? Yeah, agriculture. Already the fellow has written agriculture. So, the beginning concepts like the meaning of agriculture we will discuss. Then types of agriculture. Then cropping patterns. How many cropping patterns we have? Cropping season in India. What are those? We have three. What are those? Kharif crop, Rabi crop, then Zaid crop. These are the three cropping seasons. Then we are in major crops. The topic major crops. The important crops of India. The important crops. These important crops which we grow in India has classified as three groups, as I told. There is no need to worry about the groups, but for the better understanding, you should understand the groups of three crops. One is the food crops. Another one, food crops other than the grains. Food crops like the grains, cereals. Here another next one, food crops, but it is not a grains. For example, sugarcane, tea, coffee, they are not a grains. Sugarcane is not a crop, like a grains. So it's food crop, but not a grains. Then another group, last group, it's about cash crops. That means non-food crops. Here the sugarcane and the tea, coffee also comes under the cash crop. But this means third group, what we discuss, non-food crop, totally it's the cash crop. In another major crops means food crops. We have many food crops. So here the first important crop. Which is that first important crop? Not only for India, the whole world. From ancient period, many years back, when the agriculture method was introduced, means when the civilization get improved, the people got information about the agriculture. From there, they started to depend on that crop. Which is that? Yes, it's a rice paddy. So we'll discuss about the rice. Here, is it visible there correctly? The rice, it requires high temperature and high humidity to grow. That means, as we discussed in under three cropping pattern. In which cropping pattern, otherwise in which cropping season the rice is grown? In which cropping season? I have given as example. Yes, the Rabi cropping season. So this rice is called as Rabi crop. Sorry, the Kharif crop. Sorry, the Kharif crop. So this rice is grown in the Kharif season. It's called as Kharif crop. It's a Kharif crop. It requires high temperature. It requires high temperature. High temperature, that means it varies from 22 degrees Celsius to 32 degrees Celsius of temperature it requires for the growth. And it requires high humidity, that means high rainfall. More than 200 centimeters of rainfall for annually. Annually, it requires 200 centimeters of rainfall for the good growth of the rice. It's a Kharif crop. It requires high temperature and high rainfall, more than 200 centimeters. So India is the second largest producer of rice. Then which country is leading in the production of rice in the world? Yes, it's China. So next next to the China, India is placed in the second position in producing the more rice in the world. India is the second largest producer of rice in the world. after China. Next after China, the India is the largest producer of rice, and this rice is a staple food for the whole world, and as well as for the India, it's a staple food. Staple food ಅಂದ್ರೆ like pradhana ahara, the important, the basic crop or basic food is we'll get from this rice. It's not so. It's a basic crop for Indians. It's a staple food for Indians, and as well as for the whole world. Rice is a staple food, we know about it, isn't it? So it's India is the second largest producer after China, and it's a staple food for Indians. Is that all? The leading producer of rice in India, mainly the states like Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, and West Bengal, Andhra Pradesh, and eastern part of India are leading producer of rice in India. In India, these are the states which are leading producer of rice. Then more rice is like in among these all the states, Andhra Pradesh they produces more, and Uttar Pradesh they produces more rice. And the eastern part of India, what we say the seven sisters, the eastern part of India, they grow three different types of rice. Three different types of rice, like us, bolo. These are the two. I remember there are three different. There's no need. It's not mentioned here. So these are the important things about this rice, or important points. Then you will go for next important crop. It's about wheat. So wheat is a second important or second staple food of India after the rice. It's a very important crop than the rice, and this is called as rabi crop because during the winter season the seed of wheat will be sown. Then it requires a high temperature while ripening. While harvesting, it requires a high temperature. While sowing the seed, it requires low temperature. So this wheat is well suitable to grow. This crop is well suitable to grow during rabi season. So it's a rabi crop. It's called as a rabi crop. It's a rabi crop, and it's the second important crop of India. Is it visible? There, camera. Second important crop of India. It's a rabi crop. Then in the world, same like rice, India is the second largest producer of wheat. It's the second largest producer of wheat in the world after China. The same point like the rice. It's the second largest producer of wheat in the world after China. So as it is grown in the rabi season, this crop requires low temperature, means moderate rainfall and the low temperature. This crop, that means it requires low temperature low temperature is actually it's a moderate temperature from 10 to 15 degrees Celsius while sowing the seed. In sowing time it requires 10 to 15 degrees Celsius and 21 to 23 degrees Celsius during harvesting. Otherwise ripening. Okay, harvesting. During harvesting or ripening of seeds or ripening of this crop, it requires more temperature, and it will be sown. The seed of this crop will be sown in the beginning of spring season. So in the rabi crop, you know what that. And moderate rainfall. Around 50 to 100 centimeters per annum rainfall. 50 to 100 centimeters of rainfall per annually it requires for the growth of this wheat. The leading producer of wheat, the states in India, like we have north and northwest and south and southwest parts of India that grow wheat. So north and northwest, south and southeast actually. Southeast. North and northwest, south and southeastern part of India, they grow this wheat well. And the sowing of a seed, it varies in the month in a different regions. For example, in a southern part of India, in the south part of India, we sow the seed of this wheat in between the September and October month. But in the eastern part, northeastern part of India, they sow the seed of wheat in between November and December. Means 1 month variation we have in sowing the seed. 1 or 2 month variation in sowing the seed of wheat in the rabi crop. Is it clear? So then the maize. Maize. So this maize is grown in a both like as a food and fooder. This maize grown as food and fooder both. It has grown as both as food and fooder. It's grown as both food for human beings and food for animals. Food and fooder. And this maize, which is mainly grown in a Kharif season, and some part of India they grow during the Rabi season. But most part of India they grow during the Kharif season. This maize are grown during Kharif season. But this maize will not get good growth if that receives more than 100 centimeters of rainfall per annum. It requires moderate, and it should be less than 100 centimeters of rainfall. And it requires moderate temperature. It requires moderate temperature and rainfall that in between 75 to 100 centimeters of rainfall per annum. So you don't get a good growth in the places which receives more than 100 centimeters of rainfall per annum in the year. in the areas which receives more than 100 centimeters of rainfall. There it don't grow much good. The good growth will not be there in that places. It's mainly grown in the central part of India, the north, east and central part of Indian states. Grow the maize. Mainly Tamil Nadu they grow. Means in all these states, Tamil Nadu they grow the maize in most part of their land. The maize are grown during the Rabi season. In the north and northeastern part, they grow this crop in the Kharif season. So maize is a Kharif actually. It's grown in the Kharif season in northeastern part, but during the Rabi season, the Tamil Nadu, the place states of Tamil Nadu, they grow the maize during Rabi crop. It's a Rabi crop in Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, they grow it as food and fodder, as I told. Both as a food and fodder, they grow in the Tamil Nadu. About this camera. Okay. Then next, millets. So millets are like coarse grains, coarse bunch of grains there in these millets. So millets, it's as like other crops, rice and wheat and maize. It's the name of a single crop. But in the millets, it includes so many. As like oil seeds, we have mustard and sunflower oil, and there are many things like pulses. We have moong, dal, and third. There are many things in that. It's not same like that. In under this millets, it's a name for the group of coarse grain. Millets is a heading or a name for the group of grains. In under this, we have many. But in India, we have three important crops called as millets. It's like jowar, basra, and ragi. These millets, like what we have three crops that will be grown in both as a rabi crop and kharif crop. Millets are grown in both cropping season. What are those? Both kharif season and rabi season. In these both seasons, these millets are grown mainly. For example, jowar. Jowar crop is grown in both the season, kharif season, rabi season. So, these millets mainly it's grown in both the seasons. Comparing with the other crops, as like we discussed, rice, wheat, and maize. Comparing with all those things, it has more nutrition. This millets has more nutrition, and in among these jowar, basra, ragi is having more nutrition, and it supports for our diet, and also that helps in increasing the nutrition in your body by decreasing the deficiency, the food deficiency. So these millets have more nutrition. The millets of India, the millets which are grown in India are jowar, basra, and ragi. These are the three important millets which we grow in India. Jowar, Basra and Rabi. We will discuss one by one. Like a Jowar. This Jowar grown in a both Rabi and Kharif crop. Means this Jowar also called as Kharif and Rabi crop, because it's grown in a both the season, both the Kharif and Rabi season it's grown, so it's called as Kharif and Rabi crops, the Jowar. It requires temperature of around 21 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius, and the rainfall around 100 to 150 centimeters of rainfall per annum it's required. The Jowar can be grown in the areas which receives high rainfall and also moderate rainfall. With the help of irrigation facilities, it can be grown during the Rabi season, and it can be grown in the places which receives highest temperature and moderate temperatures. Then the leading producer of Jowar in India, the state wise, is Maharashtra. Maharashtra is the leading producer. Of Jowar. Then apart from this, like we have Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh and Karnataka also grow Jowar. Maharashtra is a leading producer. Along with that, we have Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh and Karnataka, and even Andhra Pradesh. There also they grow this Jowar. Then next one, the Basra. The Basra is mainly grown in the Kharif season. Basra is also called as a Kharif crop. So it requires the same. It requires moderate temperature. The moderate temperature is from 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. Around 10 to 15 degrees. It's not 20 means it's high somewhat. 10 to 15 degrees Celsius. It requires the temperature. The rainfall, it requires around 75 to 100 degrees centimeters of rainfall. So the soil type which is required, which is suitable for the growth of Basra, is like a fertile, loamy and sandy soil required or suitable for growth of this crop. For the growth of Basra, the fertile loamy and sandy soils are required. In these two important soils, this Basra grows well. But here in the Jowar, it requires a loamy soil. And this Basra also grown in the alluvial soil and somewhat of red and yellow soil also required for the growth of this Basra. Then the leading producer is Rajasthan. Rajasthan is the leading producer of Basra. Then it's followed by, we have Maharashtra, then Uttar Pradesh, Haryana and Andhra Pradesh. These are the other important states which grows this Basra, Andhra Pradesh, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra. Then what are Rabi? So in among all these things, ragi is having high nutrition. Then all these jowar and basra, ragi is having high nutrition, and this ragi can be grown in the areas which receives very low temperature and very low rainfall. So with the help of irrigation facilities and the chemical fertilizers, we can grow this ragi in the well conditions. So Karnataka is a leading producer for ragi. You know about that. After that Karnataka, we have Tamil Nadu and some part of Uttarakhand. This ragi is grown mainly in the rabi season and also in the kharif season. Grown in a rabi season, rabi cropping season actually. We don't have like it's not. I am not discussing about climatic season. It's about the cropping season, the rabi season. It has high nutritional value. Then all these millets, this ragi has high nutritional value. And this ragi also used as a medicine for many patients. It's not. So it has some important uses for the curing our diseases. Then it requires moderate temperature and rainfall. Karnataka is leading producer. So apart from Karnataka, we have Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand, other important states which grows ragi. So this is about the millets. Then we go for pulses. Is that over? Oh. The pulses. India is a leading producer, largest producer and largest consumer of the pulses. We produce the pulses in India and we consume it. And we know the uses of all those things. We know the food which we prepare from the use of these pulses. The pulses, what is that? The pulses will have the grains inside the mold. Like, like a moon and like a third, as like a peas, avocado peas, and like a gram. So you will get a gram and you will get a what you call the grains inside the mold. It's like it's all called as a pulses. So India is a leading producer, largest producer. India is the largest producer and consumer in the world. In the world, which produces more pulses and we consume as well. The pulses are like we have moon, third, dal, peas and gram. These are the important pulses what we grow in India: moong, tur, dal, peas and grams. These are the important pulses which we grow. And the temperature, these are all pulses mainly grown in the rabi season. So these all the things are grown in a rabi season. It requires temperature from around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. Rainfall, it requires 75 to 150 or 100 centimeters of rainfall it requires. So with the help of irrigation facilities and with the help of a chemical fertilizer like HY weeds, high yield varieties and chemical fertilizers, we can grow these pulses well. Like these pulses are grown along with the other crops, like from the Green Revolution we adopted many modern techniques in the growing crops. One of that is multiple cropping, means growing more than one crops in a single agriculture season, in one season, is not. Like suppose you are growing the kapu, so in between the kapu growing the ulagadi, it's a multiple cropping, is not. So these pulses are grown as a multiple crops. In most part of India, it's grown as multiple crops. These crops grown as multiple crops. The states like the coastal regions, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Odisha, West Bengal, and eastern part of India, they grow these pulses well. So this requires somewhat more rainfall, and in a moderate temperature, it can be grown well. Is it over? Is it over? Okay. So it's about the food crops what we discussed. The next is about the food crops other than the grains. These all are grains what we discuss now. The pulses, grains, cereal crops. Like millets are the cereal crops, and these all are pulses and the grains. Now it's about the food crops other than the grains. What are those food crops other than the grains? Yes, sugarcane, tea, coffee, oil seeds, horticulture means growing fruits. These all are the food crops but not the grains. So we will discuss about these 5 important crops in the next class, and after that we have non-food crops, means cash crops, like fiber crops. What are those? Cotton, jute, then the rubber. So we'll discuss about all those remaining things. Now that's it for this today's class.